One of the funniest, most nonsensical things that Trump supporters have to say is that they voted for him because they want him to tackle corruption. Donald Trump is and has been a known con man for the majority of his career. That is not my opinion. This is well-documented fact. So if that's the guy you're going to send in to tackle corruption, then you're just not being very serious about your motivations. And that really goes to the heart of why I have difficulty dealing with MAGA, because it's like for the longest time, I really held on to this idea of not letting politics come between relationships and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you don't stand for anything you claim to stand for. So it's so much more than what we disagree on. You're just not an authentic person. And I know that. So I am actually still on the Donald Trump email list. I get campaign emails. He's the president of the United States, and I get campaign emails like 5 times a day. One thing I really don't like about his presidency, he never stops rallying and campaigning, and it's just, you're the president of the United States, you have bigger fish to fry, and if you don't understand that, I take issue with that. Obviously, of all the things I have a problem with, that's kind of on the smaller end of things. But this article is from MSN.com. Trump is dangling the idea of government checks to get people to donate to his campaign. Donald Trump doing Donald Trump things. That's what that sounds like to me. Trump hasn't actually committed to sending out DOGE checks or tariff rebates to Americans. Even if he did, he would need Congress to approve it, and many GOP lawmakers oppose it, yet his political operation has used the prospect of those checks to solicit donations anyways. That's the guy. That's your guy that's going to tackle corruption. He is promising people something he most likely either won't or can't deliver to get money from them. That's not corruption in your world? On what planet? But as far as DOGE is concerned, DOGE was a total joke. The point was not to save the government money. Even Donald Trump should have been more intelligent than that. But anyways, DOGE in concept sounds like a good thing. Department of Government Efficiency. Of course, that sounds great. But it kind of defeats the purpose of cutting all of this fat if you're just going to, instead of taking it in and going, okay, where else can we use this money to get things back on track? That's what I would do. If you want people who are such good businessmen, it just seems like if you're cutting money to save money, it seems like you would hold on to that money and keep it as profit or reinvest in the business somehow. And these people who are supposedly such good businessmen are constantly wanting to waste it. If we're cutting all of this waste to save money, then we should be reinvesting it where it's actually needed. Because it's the federal government. I promise you, there is something that is underfunded. There is somewhere else that this money can go. Instead of doing that, and cutting checks for taxpayers, specifically those who voted for Donald Trump, which is another whole layer of corruption in my opinion, you didn't save anything. You know what I mean? It's no longer being wasted on things you don't agree with anymore, and I mean, that's cool, I guess, but you no longer saved money because that money still went out the door. President Donald Trump is fundraising off of checks from the government that he's unlikely to send. Well, yeah, I mean, that's just, anyone surprised by that, just save it. In recent months, Trump's political operation has sent several fundraising emails that mention either the DOGE dividend or tariff rebate checks, both of which theoretically involve sending checks to some Americans worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In the case of DOGE checks, tax-paying Americans would receive checks of up to $5,000 based on purported savings from DOGE. With tariff rebate checks, some of the revenue from tariffs would be sent primarily to lower-income Americans. That part is just so convoluted. I don't even want to get into the tariffs right now, because the whole trade war is such a mess, start to finish. The latest update I heard is that he's continuing to send out letters to these nations, basically begging them to give him a chance to negotiate. And it's like, you started this, buddy. Were you not up for it, pumpkin? He does not have the intellect. He does not have the balls for what he tries to take on. He just goes through life believing that he's this badass tough guy and his personality is enough to get him anything he wants. And on top of all that, he's well aware that there are many people out there who absolutely despise him, but he still thinks that his personality will get him what he wants in the real world. That is a disconnected from reality kind of thinking. It just is. Not to mention we're facing all kinds of other consequences of this trade war. There are a lot of other countries that are cutting trade with the United States of America, and that might not be hurting right now, but down the road, if that continues, it's gonna hurt us eventually. But with DOGE specifically, the point is to cut that extra spending so that we have that money, not so we can just send it out again. While Trump has said publicly that he's considering pursuing both ideas, he has neither committed to nor made any concerted public push for either. Because that's who Donald Trump is. Why anyone thought it was a good idea to give this child power is insane to me. Now, that being said, one of the reasons I worry so much about what he says is because the vast majority of ideas that he has talked about that have been absolutely terrible ideas, inhumane ideas, anti-American ideas, dangerous ideas, etc., he has actually followed through on. There are a handful of things that he's never going to follow through on because he does not believe that he should have to make the case for anything. He believes that he should be able to say, I am the president, I want this done, therefore it shall be done. He does literally view himself as a king. He rules by executive order. Half of his executive orders are not even enforceable, so it just creates all this chaos in our legal system, which that's just not something I have any respect for anyways. But for some of the bigger changes that he wants to make, he has to present his ideas to Congress. And he doesn't have the wherewithal to present ideas. I listened to him the other day and he started rambling about grass and how it's alive, and we're alive too, and he knows everything about grass better than anybody. Boy, it would be laughable for him to go in front of Congress and present his ideas. Frankly, he needs other people to present his ideas for him. That is where he has the most success. When he can get someone who is more competent than he is and who can communicate more clearly than he does to communicate an idea. So he will use people like J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, and they'll be spewing BS, but they can at least tie it together into competent sentences, and he just can't. He doesn't have what it takes. He's gone. Dementia Don is gone. I don't know why y'all can't accept that. Even if he did, Trump would have to seek approval from Congress, where Republicans are overwhelmingly against both ideas. That hasn't stopped the president's campaign from using both concepts, sometimes simultaneously, to solicit donations. A fundraising email sent by his leadership PAC on Thursday included the subject line, "Do you want a Doge check?" But the body of the email included a rebate check poll. And here's what the poll says. I only need you to answer one question, and it's a very important one. I'm only sending this poll to my Trump-trusted 1%. I'm even providing you with a 2-hour extension to answer. Should bonus revenue from tariffs go back to the American people via check signed by Trump? Will those checks be delayed so he can make sure that his name is on it? My team tells me that gathering 1 million responses today is the best way to send these so-called representatives a message they won't be able to ignore. 2 large buttons in the body of the email labeled question number 1 and respond to Trump send recipients to a donation page. Donation page for what? Where are these donations going?